Hello there and welcome. In the previous episode we added the reloading functionality to our pistol, so now we can reload the weapon. In this episode we're going to add a new weapon into our game because eventually you're going to want to add more weapons, and I'm going to show you that now it's going to be easier when we already have the code. All we need to do is add the model and then drag the script on the model. And of course, we need to do a few more things, but I'm going to show you how to do it, and then you're going to be able to practically add any weapon that you want. And we're also going to change the code a bit so it will work with different weapons and nothing will be hard-coded inside. Before we add the model, I added a child object into the player and I named it weapon spawn, and this is basically the place that we're going to spawn all the models when we're going to add the picking up functionality. Eventually we're going to be able to pick up weapons from the floor, so we want to instantiate these models into some kind of object. So it's just an empty object that I named weapon spawn. It has a 000 position, and I dragged the pistol into this weapon spawn. Now we can deactivate the pistol because we don't want to see it in the game view. So we are going to find our model inside the imported assets, and we have this stylized weapons pack. And inside we're going to use this M16 model, and we're going to create some kind of assault rifle. So we drag this prefab into the weapon spawn, and we're going to unpack it completely. And then we're going to rename it to M16. Now I'm going to input some values for the position, but you basically just need to set the weapon to look the way you want it when you equip it. Next, we're going to expand the M16, we're going to expand the pistol, and we're going to duplicate the bullet spawn, so Ctrl D, and we're going to drag it into the M16. And then we need to simply position it at the tip of our weapon. Now we're going to select our weapon and we're going to add the weapon script. And we're also going to add an animator. Next, we're going to add some simple animations to the weapon because each model should have its own animations. Otherwise, it's not going to work because each model has its own scale, its own position, so you can't use the same animation for different weapons. So we click on the M16, we go to the animation tab, we're going to create a new idle animation. So idle M16. And over here I'm going to click on the 30th frame and I'm going to start recording. I'm going to move the weapon on the Y-axis a bit, so maybe 265. And then it's going to add this keyframe, and then I'm just going to copy this one and place it at the 60th frame. So it just goes up and then it goes back down. And this will be some kind of swing animation when the player is just holding the weapon. Now we're going to close the recording and we're going to create a new animation. And we're going to name it Recoil M16. Now in our pistol animation, the weapon kicked back. In the M16, it should also kick back, but it's not going to be rotated up. Rather, it's going to just move backwards a bit. So this animation should also be very quick, so we're only going to use 10 frames. So on the 5th frame, we're going to start recording and we're going to move the weapon. Instead of 0.6, it's going to be 0.59. And then at the 10th, we're going to just put it back to be 6. And then we can see that the weapon kicks back a bit and then goes back into its original position. Now we're going to create a new animation, and it's an animation that we don't have for the pistol, but we're going to have it for the M16, and it's going to be the reload animation. So we're going to create reload M16, and here we're also going to use 60 frames. So on the 30th frame we want to move the magazine down, and because this model comes with different parts, different attachments that you can actually separate, we're going to select our magazine and then we're going to move it down on the y-axis, and then we're going to bring it up. So we're going to start recording, and we're going to move the magazine down a bit. And then we're going to copy the initial position and place it at the 60. And we can see that the magazine goes down and then goes up again. Now we're going to add an extra thing inside our animation just to make it look more realistic. So over here at the 31st frame, we're going to deactivate this magazine. So we're going to click over here and we're going to deactivate it. And then at the 35th frame, we're going to make it active again. So now it will look like the magazine goes down and then we do something with it and then we place it back into the weapon. Next, we will go into our animations and we will find the pistol animator. So we don't need to create a new animator. We're simply going to duplicate the one that we created for the pistol. So Control D. And now we're going to rename it to be M16. And we're going to drag it into the animator component of our M16. Then when we open the animator, we're going to see this setup that was created for the pistol, but now it's actually the animator that is on our M16. So we don't need to do this all over again because we already did it. All we need to do is click on the idle node, and then we're going to drag the M16 idle animation into the slot. And inside the recoil, we're going to drag the M16. So this way we don't need to do it all over again. And you can change these nodes, right? We can rename it to be M16 and idle M16. But you don't need to do all of this setup that we already did. Next, we also want to make sure that our reload is working. So we're going to drag the reload animation into this window and we're going to create a new trigger. And we're going to name it Reload. Then we're going to create a transition from the idle to the reload and then a transition back. On the back transition, we're going to leave everything as it is, but we're going to change this to 0. And then on the transition that goes from the idle to the reload, we're going to disable the exit time. We're going to set the condition to be reload. And let's see that it's the same. Yeah, we can also disable the transition duration. So the setup should be the same setup we had with the recoil, but this time we're going to trigger the reload instead of the recoil. And of course, you can create a reload animation for your pistol and then create the same setup on the animator of your pistol. But for now, we're not going to do it. Now, before we go into the code and actually start this trigger, we will click on our M16 and we need to set the different settings so it will actually be an automatic weapon, an assault rifle, and we just need to play with this and fine tune it. I already played around and I know the values. In your case, you may have a different weapon, you want it to feel differently, so you need to play around with these settings. For the shooting delay, we're going to set it at 0.15 because right now it's an automatic weapon, so we want it to be very fast. So the shooting delay should be small. Then bullets per burst should be 1. The spread intensity should be something bigger than 0. For the bullet velocity, we're going to set it at 700. For the bullet prefab lifetime, we're going to leave it at 3 seconds. The reload time should be about 2 seconds. And the magazine size of a standard assault rifle is something like 30 bullets. But of course, you can play around with it. You can add attachments that are going to increase it. And the most important thing is to change the current shooting mode to be automatic. Of course, you can still shoot it with a single mode if you just tap on the left mouse button, but if you hold it down, it will shoot automatically. Then of course, we also need to drag all of these references. So for the bullet prefab, we go into our prefabs. Let's just log this and we drag the bullet prefab. Then for the bullet spawn, we drag the bullet spawn of our M16. And for the muzzle effect, we drag the muzzle flash over here. Now that we added the reload animation, we also want to activate it. So inside our reload method, over here next to the sound, we're going to go into our animator and we're going to set trigger. And it's going to be reload because that's the name we gave it inside the animator. Now don't worry if your pistol doesn't have any reload animation. When it's going to call this method, it's not going to crash the game. It will simply give you a warning that the pistol doesn't have a reload animation. So don't worry, it will simply do nothing. Now if we run the game, we can see that we have 30 bullets, and when we hold the mouse, it will shoot with this automatic fire mode. Now the sound is not the best because we're still using the sound of our pistol. Later we're going to change the sound to be a different sound and it's going to sound better. And we also use the reload sound of our pistol, so we're also going to add a different reload sound. Now, as I told you, we have this problem that we're using the reload sound for our pistol inside the weapon script, and the same goes for the shooting sound. So it doesn't matter which weapon we're going to use right now, we will only use this pistol sound. And of course, that's not something we want to keep doing. So we're going to create some kind of system that will know which weapon we're using, and then it's going to play the appropriate sound. So in order for this weapon script to know which kind of weapon it sits on, we're going to just tell it. So we're going to create another enum over here. Public enum weapon model. And over here, we're going to have all the different types of weapon. So we're going to have a pistol, the pistol that we have, and we're going to have the M16 because these are the only weapons that we have right now. Then we're also going to create a public weapon model enum that will be this weapon model. So then we can simply set this weapon model to be the M16 or the pistol, and the script will know which kind of model it is. So let's save this, and then inside the inspector we can see this option over here, this weapon model. So because this is the M16, we're going to change it to be M16, and we also go into our pistol, and let's unlock it first. Let's go to our pistol, and over here we should put it on pistol because this is the pistol model and this is the M16 model. Now we're going to open our sound manager because we need to create some kind of method that will differentiate between the different models and play different sounds accordingly. So at the bottom, we're going to create two methods. So it's rather simple. We simply have two methods, one for playing a shooting sound and one for playing a reload sound. So when we're going to call this method, we're simply going to pass in the weapon model, and then it's going to check which kind of weapon model it is. And if the weapon model is a pistol, it's going to play the shooting sound of the pistol. If it's an M16, it's going to play the M16 sound that we still don't have. And the same way goes for the reloading. So we are going to call these methods from within our weapon script. So over here inside the fire weapon, instead of hard coding the pistol sound, we're going to say sound manager instance, play shooting sound, and we're going to provide it with this weapon model because this weapon model is the weapon that we set over here to be this enum. So if this weapon script sits on the pistol, this weapon model will be the pistol, and then it will go inside, and it will know that it's a pistol, and then it's going to play the pistol sound. And the same for the M16. Next, we also need to do this for the reloading. So inside the reload, we go over here, play reload sound, and we pass in this weapon model. And I'm going to comment this out. Well, actually, I'm going to delete this because we don't need this anymore. We also have this empty magazine sound, but for now, we're going to hard code it because it really doesn't matter if we're shooting a pistol or an M16, the sound will basically be the same. So because we don't have different sounds for this, we're going to always use the same sound. Now inside the sound manager, we're going to create 2 more audio sources for the M16. And we're going to play the shooting sound over here. And the reload over here. Then inside the inspector, we're going to create 2 more audio sources. One will be for the shooting, so you can find these 2 sounds in the description. So the first one will be the M16 shoot, and we're going to disable the play on awake, and we're going to drag this audio source into the shooting M16. And then for the second one, we're going to add the M16 reload, disable this, and drag it into the reloading sound. Now when we run the game, we can hear the different sounds. And right now we're playing the M16 sounds, but if you notice, when we shoot, something doesn't sound right. Because right now, when we shoot the first bullet, and then we shoot the second bullet cancels the sound of the first bullet. So we never hear the full sound of the previous bullets. That's why it sounds very strange. To fix this, we will go back into the sound manager, and over here, when we shoot the M16, instead of play, we're going to play 1 shot, and this will basically play the entire sound, even if we play another sound on the same channel. And that's the problem with playing different sounds on the same channel. Usually they just overlap one another. So we're going to do some fixes, but for now, we're simply going to play the actual M16 shooting sound instead of taking up this entire channel. So we need to provide it with the actual audio clip and not the audio source. So over here, we're going to create public audio clip M16 shot. And we're going to provide the M16 shot into display 1 shot. And just for consistency, we're also going to do it for the pistol. So we're going to create an audio clip for the pistol, even though the pistol doesn't really need it because the shooting is slower. Now we can be more efficient because we have 2 different clips and we play each clip on a different channel, right? On a different audio source. So it's not very efficient. We can just use 1 channel to play all of the different shootings because they will never happen at the same time. So over here, we're simply going to rename this shooting sound audio source to be shooting channel. We're going to delete this shooting M16. So now we have 1 channel for the shooting and 2 different audio clips that we're going to play on this shooting channel. For the reloading, we're going to leave it with its own audio source. Then over here, we're going to use the same channel for the different clips. And you can basically do the same thing for the reloading, but we're not going to do it at the moment. Now we need to do a few changes over here. So first of all, let's drag the actual clip for a pistol into this slot and for the M16 into this slot. And it may be confusing because now we have a bunch of audio sources, so let's just delete all of them. And now we can see what is missing and what is not. So let's just create an audio source that will be our shooting channel. And we don't need to set any clip. Then we're going to create an audio source for the reloading sound. And another one for this one. And another one for this one. And as I told you, we can merge these two into one channel. And of course, I also forgot that for this reloading sound, we do need to provide the clip. So reload M16 goes over here, and let's just make sure that this one is this one. Then the second one is the reloading sound for the pistol. So reload, and we grab it and drag it over here. And for the empty magazine, we also need the empty magazine. So I simply forgot to add these clips. But the first one should have no clip because we changed the clips through the code. And now when we run the game, we can hear that the shooting is more natural. We can hear the echo at the end of each bullet. So that's basically all for creating this new model. Now that we set everything the way we want it, we simply create a prefab out of it. I already created one before, but we're going to keep this one. So that's all for this one. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, it will help me a lot. Please leave a like, it will also help me a lot. So see you next time.